all have favorable matchups, more or less, just about against the Mage here. So I guess that is, in my opinion at least, going to be the hump for Alan. That's what he has to get over here in trying to take the series.
I might be overrating Face Hunter, but I was almost expecting that to be the ban because I feel like it has good matchups across the board from Alan's lineup, especially after Shaxy bans away the Demon Hunter. But we'll see how things pan out. It's been a while since we've seen no rogues on either side, but Shaxy starting off with Demon Hunter already with the Battle Fiend in hand is a big deal.
Oh yeah, lovely aggressive start. We saw from Tiz earlier on today holding the Skull of Gul'dan in the left position. It was a very different build of the deck, but do you think that's a plan that Shaxi should be going for, or more all in on the early game?
I definitely like the all-in early game plan because he has this type of build which can run away with it. I would like to see cards that support this curve alongside the Battle Fiend, but um, Shaxi is just gonna keep the guaranteed skull, which to be fair, the 2-drop plus the spell does kind of mean that Shaxi will have a good curve up until around turn 3.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess it's something that you always have to think about in Hearthstone at the moment is that most of the decks in the current metagame, whether they're aggro or a bit more controlling, have very, very low curves. Like Priest is low curving, Druid, Demon Hunter, and Warrior, all for the most part pretty low curving. And so you have to trust your deck. Skull of Gul'dan is the outlier because it does something unique that most of the other cards in the deck don't do. Whereas all the kind of mid-game stuff, it all just functions a similar game plan.
The big deal that Alan is not running the Malagos version, so he does have the double Lake Thrasher, double Room in there. He has room for Bog Beams and Iron Barks, all of which are important defensive tools against the Hunter. The choices from the nature studies are not great, though. I agree with taking the cheapest option there, which sometimes gives him another defensive boost.
It's just such a bad card. I hate it when I have to pick. Where is that? Mark of the Wild? Mark of Nature? I can't even remember exactly what it's called. That's how bad it is. I refuse to learn its name.
I think all Druid cards are actually named Nature of the Wild.
I grow impatient.
So you got it half right there.
Obviously,
already a dilemma for Shaxy
Right.
because you want to start buffing up the Battle Fiend, but the curve play is not buffing the Battle Fiend.
Time grows short.
you have to think about, like, what does Wandmaker achieve to be played proactively? It's never going to trade anything because Druid doesn't play anything at this early in the game. It pushes 2 damage, but with this line, you get the immediate buff. You push an extra damage next turn. You've already made up for the loss of damage of not playing Wandmaker. I think it's smart.
Yeah, that logic definitely makes sense. The only thing you have to factor in is, you know, if Alan has removal for this turn, be it Crystal Power or Bog Beam, then you would much rather have had another minion. But I think it's fair to make the read that there wasn't Crystal Power because I think that would have been the play last turn over Nature Studies or even alongside it to get rid of.
You don't pick the one, see?
Oh, sorry, Alan's list doesn't run Crystal Power. I just noticed.
Oh, okay. So no Crystal Power. It's just the sad Frostbolt he has to go for with the reduced Bog Beam instead.
Always Rafa.
Pretty good here, right? More damage.
Mm-hmm.
This is far from insignificant.
Coin overgrowth. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the perfect curve with the Teacher's Pet next turn, but just getting the ramp out of the way makes all of Alan's turns a bit easier.
And this turn just feels really rough for Shaxi because first instinct, obviously, carry on with the curve, tempo out Kane here. But even then, you're really starting to expect a Guardian Animals here, in which case, like you said, the Threshers are just so devastating against this. Even if you position correctly.
Yeah, what is this position?
Yeah, I mean, it's just wrong, but it's not the hugest deal.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but I feel at this point that should be second nature to anyone playing around, playing versus Druid. If he just plays Teacher's Pet, obviously Shaxi can still send everything upstairs. But the downside of going for overflow right now is that the overload makes every turn following kind of painful.
Yeah.
Alan deciding
Alan-
that he needs something better than just getting the teacher's pet online right now. And he hits Lightning Bloom Guardian Animals for the next turn. That's the Giga Nut.
You don't
Yeah,
break
well,
the
I mean, he's
walls,
actually got
see?
Bloom, Innovate, Kael'thas Guardian Animals all on the same turn if he wants to get even more tempo on board.
Oh, yeah, enough mana to do all that.
Yeah. Turned out to be a smart choice. He's going to start massively pulling back onto this board, which is necessary, of course, because Shaxy, his tempo route that he took with Kayn here, even, again, with slightly wrong positioning, has meant that he gets so much damage through.
I'm sorry. It's just funny how adamant Shaxy is about not having Kayn anywhere in the middle.
Yeah,
If the Shatter Shard goes on the far left, I'm just gonna lose it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I would still equip Eldraki here. To get 2 charges in over 2
Agreed.
turns.
Yeah.
But I think he's in the mindset of I never beat GA into Thresher, which is fair.
He's got Skull to follow up. Like, he's got a very decent curve still, even after this is cleared up.
Alan has drawn 1 Thresher, so it's possible that he misses the other one if he gets like the Pilot Runners or other teams.
My people are addicted to it.
A beautiful clear.
The dream.
No taunt though, so there is still a slight possibility that Alan dies in the near future.
He almost can get the double activation there on KT, but it's, yeah, just the Iron Buck I think that will be protected.
Right, what was I saying about no taunt? And there is no big Magtheridon out in Shaxy's list, so I'm already thinking that we're in build up the biggest blade dance you've ever seen territory, so I want to see Skull this turn.
Demons.
Hard agree.
Demons.
Can't even get big enough to kill off the Kael'thas on board. It's just the only line as far as I'm concerned.
Facing down 14, and survival of the fittest will always be a threat, but if Shaxy ever wants a chance at winning the game as opposed to just trying to stay alive for an extra turn longer, I do think it has to be building up a big blade dance. Yeah,
I mean, I guess he's flirting with the idea of going Jailer plus Shard Shatter because that does deny 2 draws, but I still think that's just cute. That's not actually game winning at that point. It's just kind of getting you maybe closer to them not instantly winning the game.
This is big though. He has Jailer into Lapidary with the Blade Dance and Twin Slices. Can get there for sure. But in the meantime, Alan can go Survival because the Kael'thas stuck.
Right, like he can go Mark of Taunt buff, whatever it's called, on Kael'thas again, I guess if he wants to, in order to just have absolute maximum health.
Yeah?
Or +4 attack to just kill him.
Wait, is that lethal? I think it is.
Really?
Yes, Moonfire and Hero Power. Even without the second survival, it was lethal.
Oh yeah, it was
That's just
lethal.
funny.
Pretty funny way to close things out, and well played there by Alan. The real kind of crunch turn there, the only real strong decision he had being, do you go for the playing out teacher's pet or going for the overflow? And I think we can quite clearly agree, if you hadn't gone for the overflow, the game was over.
Yes, indeed. Big win there for Alan, but I think we were in agreement that it's really the Mage that is the shakiest deck from him. Not quite so much as shaky as Tyler's Bomb Warrior was against Chonsu's lineup, but even in that world, there's a chance to win. So I'm liking Alan's chances overall.
Yep, myself included in that statement. I think I did still kind of like what Shaxy was going for. It was a very aggressive approach to the matchup, which is I do think what has been lacking in the play, at least in APAC Demon Hunter, with the kind of the biggest culprit of that, of course, being Tom's build of the deck, which kind of limits his ability to even play aggressively, whether or not he intends to in the different matchups. But Shaxy, I think, is still in with a good chance of taking a win there, and in with a good chance overall, because with the Druid out of the way, that did to me feel like the strongest deck overall, because the Highlander Priest here, I personally believe it's even just in a rough spot against the aggro Face Hunter. That just feels like a good matchup for me, where you kill the Priest before any kind of Highlander nonsense can occur.
I would have to agree. When I was looking at all of the decks, I thought that Face Hunter had good matchups across the board. Maybe not so strong of the percentages in each individual matchup that Shaxy thought, that Alan thought it was worth banning. But I think that Face Hunter, most builds these days just find a great spot in the meta, and I think that's a strong second queue for Shaxy.
Well, that is our first match of the last APAC game done for the day, which means we're going to have our last APAC break for the day. We have the rest of the series yet to come before we send you over to Europe and Americas for a full day of Hearthstone yet to come. And when we come back, we're going to see if Shaxy can turn things around with his aggro lineup against the old-fashioned stuff from Alan. Stick around to find out. You're watching the last series of the day here in APAC. Before, as I said before the break, we send you over to Europe and then Americas with plenty of very exciting storylines happening there. But here we got stories of our own. And down in Division B, it really is just a scrap to try and win some of your games, really squishing closer and closer to the middle. We saw in Division A, Surrender go up 4-0, Chonsu go down 0-4. But here we have Alutemu at 1-1, Shaxy at 1-1, Alan at 2-1. It's only really Possessi now, 0-2, that's trailing the rest of the pack.
Indeed. So this match definitely is a chance for Alan to secure the lead that he started off with. But on the flip side, if he loses a second series in a row, then suddenly he's down to the middle of the pack, whereas nobody has really risen above the rest in Division B. For Alan, it definitely looks like he's in a good spot because he has taken a win already. But as we were talking about, potentially his Mage could struggle against all the remaining decks from Shaxy.
Yes. I'm not even sure what I would say the best chance is for the Mage. Like, I kind of want to hesitantly say Hunter, because I have had, with some powerful Mage hands, a decent matchup against Hunter, but even having said that, it's not what you want to be hitting. The super aggro playstyle is difficult, to say the least, for Mage to overcome.
And starting off with what I believe is Shaxy's best matchup against Mage. That's another Sorcerer's Apprentice toss from Alan. He does it again. Oh!
Tossing Apprentice. The forbidden play. Illegal
we've already
in 49
had this argument,
states.
so I guess we should catch everyone up to what exactly you were talking about. Well, Derek and I and Orange and probably the majority of Mage players are of the opinion that Sorcerer's Apprentice is the most powerful activation effect for the whole deck, so it's instantly kept in every mulligan. But Alan has been staunch, at least in this matchup, of the belief that he would rather have Cram Session plus Lab Partner to start out his early turns.
Yeah, because to be fair, the Sorcerer's Apprentice game plan does kind of engender passivity in the early game. Like, you kind of hold back, gearing up all your powerful plays instead of tempoing out, which Alan does not want to do. He wants to play for tempo as hard as he can. He doesn't really care, I think, what minions he's doing it with. He just wants to make sure he's going as hard as he can to lock down the early game.
The whole philosophy for keeping Apprentice is to unlock his leftmost card, though, Mana Giant, which, you know, many Mage players tend to believe is the best game plan to try and race the Demon Hunter before they take too much face damage. For Alan's philosophy, though, which is, you know, largely plausible, is if you try to mulligan for more board presence in the early game, maybe you don't need to have the fastest giant possible to win the game. Still remains to be seen which one is better, but, you know, I'm sticking to my opinion that I don't like the Apprentice toss.
I think that the plausible is the perfect term for Alan's game plan. Like, it's technically plausible that someone would want to mulligan away Apprentice, but I wouldn't believe it until I've seen it.
And seen it work out. Because we have seen it a couple times from Alan here, but I don't remember if he ended up taking the win in that game versus Demon Hunter before.
You don't pick the ones.
We'll take a Primordial Studies. That sounds pretty premium. You're only holding back, I think, if you get like Brain Freeze there to kill off the minion. Really looking here for Lab Partner, I think, to just go with Raz next turn, but you never turn your nose up at Solarian Prime.
Just feels like Alan's been doing such fair things so far, which whenever I play Mage, I want to do unfair things.
The unfair things are coming, 100%. He's got Giant and Conjurer's Calling in hand, Missiles, Polymorph, and Astromancer Solarian, all of which did not start in his deck.
But for Shaxy, he has powerful plays for himself. I mean, double Battle Fiends and the Eldraki all equipable this turn. He can have a firm grasp on the board. And with no spell damage minions already developed for Alan, the Raz is not too scary yet. Okay, going Demon Canyon instead of the Eldraki also lets him save the coin. Fine. I think I value Twin Slice too much from playing back when Altruist was core in Demon Hunter.
Right, yeah. And I mean, even to be fair to this day, 4 damage for 2 mana to point at the face is absolutely huge in this matchup. But quite clearly, I think Shaxy is smelling some amount of weakness. There is not a huge ability to clear off the board here. But my lord, if a Lab Partner had been generated, Shaxy would just be absolutely blasted out of this game.
Although, you can still see that the Raz game plan is still the philosophy for Alan here.
Yes.
Going so far as to polymorph a Kolak and getting all the worst outcomes from the arcane missiles. He was obviously setting up for Solarian plus Astromancer to deal all damage to everything at 2 health anyway, but he went for arcane missiles to maybe save himself 1 or 2 HP this turn.
This is El Disastero for Alan. He does get to clear off most of the board now, but because of Shaxy's last-minute switch from Panthera over to the Glade-bound Adept, he gets to push another 6 next turn as well.
That is true.
Disaster.
The only downside, if you can even call it that I can see from Shaxy's game plan is he hasn't found time to put Soul Fragments in the deck, so he doesn't necessarily have active Lapidary for the next
True.
turn. But it is such a small price to pay for the amount of pressure that he's getting.
Tricaster in case Raz sticks and you're somehow not dead on the following turn. Like, I'm reaching. I'm really reaching. I mean, obviously at this point, it's worth saying that the actual best win condition for Alan is to get Walking Fountain, Tyrion, some kind of way to taunt or heal.
And Shaxy just picked up the 1 mana Soul Fragment activator if he wants just push everything face. I mean, I usually advocate for dealing with Raz, but it feels like Shaxy is so far ahead that this 6 damage has to go to the dome every single time, right?
Yeah, I agree completely. There are no randomly generated spells in hand, so it can't be Frostbolt, it can't be Ice Barrier, it can't even be Mirror Image if you want to be generous as to ways that Alan could stop this damage.
So if he goes Mana Feeder, but isn't it just Eldraki Hero Power now? He's committed to dealing with the Raz, which I am fine with because he still has 9 damage from hand on the next turn with Spirit Jailer, Second Slice, Soul Shard, Lapidary.
Okay, fair enough. Leaves up the Astromancer as well, which is a fairly big deal, just because you obviously don't give them the prime draw for next turn.
So here it is. Giant Punch. What is it gonna be?
Not that.
GG.
Sad game for Alan, obviously, with those... if the missiles had behaved themselves a little bit more, maybe he would have been able to go for an alternate plan. And to be fair to him, again, if we're talking about Alan's very unique approach to the matchup and throwing away the Apprentice, he did get himself a lot of tempo early on. It was only those early plays that stopped him getting completely blown out by the early development plays from Shaxy, and he was able to get down Giant Conjurer's Calling in a very timely fashion.
It's also worth noting that the Arcane Missiles pan out was extremely unfortunate for Alan there. I think on average, he would have had maybe 2 more health than he did at that point, which maybe gave him an extra turn. Probably still lose in that outcome, but you can definitely see the philosophy of what Alan is going for. I'm still of the opinion that, if you're fighting with the average outcome of the Mage deck of just curving out pretty well and trying to swing with Raz, you've probably taken enough damage that I would prefer to look for Apprentice and ways to generate Frostbolts, Ice Barriers on top of trying to get to your Mana Giant game plan. I might just be a high roller with my mindset on Mage, but I've yet to be convinced by Alan's playstyle.
Well, he's going to have plenty more chance to refine his playstyle against myriad decks from Shaxy, because to be fair to him, I think even though they are kind of different decks in how they appear at first glance, the way that you're playing Mage against both the Warrior and the Hunter is fairly similar. You're looking for more removal in the early game versus the Hunter, but basically the point is you need something pretty impressive, I think, to be able to take the win. You're focusing more on, I think, getting Apprentice, cheating out a bunch of spells against the Hunter, but you don't want to be too greedy against Bomb Warrior because those weapon swings can end the game quite quickly.
I would say this is a matchup where Apprentice is very important in the early game, but not so much for the fact that it cheapens Giants and it allows you to generate value with Mana Cyclone, but because it can be board presence plus removal all on the same turn, with the added benefit of sometimes when you hit the God Hand that you cheapen your Mana Giants as well. I think Face Hunter has, it's value light enough that you can get away with Apprentice not generating you additional spells, but instead
Agreed.
cheating out mana in the early game.
Alan here left with some big questions because Shaxy kept a card
What to do?
but past turn 1. What could it possibly be that is worth holding on to when you have no other 1-drops to play?
My number one guess would be Felmaw,
Okay.
but I would not have guessed Cult Neophyte, actually. Interesting, because obviously it has powerful disruption effect against Alan's most powerful place, but the question remains is, do you have to think about playing around Alan's power spike if you run away with the early game in the first place?
We'll have to see. Shaxy's relatively slow hand, though, and relatively weak follow-up as well, for that matter, actually. Does set up for some powerful plays for Alan now. Even as early as next turn, he has the possibility of Apprentice Coin Missiles Cyclone, or as early as this turn, just go Missiles Coin Cyclone.
I'm on board. He has a giant filled hand. Any generated spells could make his life a whole lot easier. And looking at Shaxy's list again, he doesn't actually even run Felmaws. I'm surprised by that.
It's kind of a disaster for Shaxy. He missed the Volpatinger as well on that outcome.
Someday I'll be just like you.
Oh, love it.
Alan is super far ahead now with the Tempo Apprentice. Oh,
Just
even
play it.
Solarian here, yeah.
Look at this
Like,
tempo.
if Shaxy wants to kill the Apprentice here, it takes a lot of resources. He runs Eagle Horn Bow and Kill Command, but if that's the answer to it, then Alan's very happy. Okay, Sharpshooter is the best one.
Yeah, fantastic draw there. Shaxy can start to mess things up here. You know, the way that you sequence things gets very, very difficult when you're factoring in Pressure Plate, Pack Tactics, Freezing Trap. You kind of have to play around all of them very differently.
Mm-hmm. I find that with Face Hunter, a lot of the time the best way to play around their Pack Tactics is by not even caring about their minions, but Shaxy is ahead on board and he maintains the Dwarven Sharpshooter, so Alan does kind of have to bite the bullet here. The good thing is it's just the one secret, so he doesn't have to go for the catch-22 of activating the Pack Tactics just to make sure that you can play a spell.
So obviously this game plan currently revolves around Mana Giant and activating that with Conjurer's Calling. Is the best way to go about that to go Incantus Flow plus Cram Session to get as many cheap spells in hand as possible? Or are we going Primordial here on this turn plus Cram Session to draw as many cards as possible? Or is it just Giant?
I'm interested in 8/8 on board right now.
Right.
It just challenges everything pretty decently. He's seen the Freezing Trap, of which Shaxy only runs one copy. So I like the Giant. And take the VT on the Dwarven Sharpshooter.
Alan's deviating though. He's holding back on these 8/8s, clearly going for one ultimate swing turn, you'd have to imagine, in a couple turns' time.
I mean, he has the health to play with for now. I think that Alan roped out on the attack there. Actually missed getting rid of the Dwarven Sharpshooter, which is huge.
That's a disaster. That is an absolute disaster.
Muzzle there.
Cult Neophyte finally getting its due as well.
Sure if that's some latency problem wherever Alan is right now, but he's in such a bad spot now. Ray of Frost is a big draw though.
Right, yeah, reduced and then expensified back up to 1 mana on this turn.
Is it not just Frostbolt Giant here?
You definitely don't want to go
Frostbolt was
Giant
generated.
then spell, right? Because there is still Pressure
Yeah.
Plate. Yes. Correct.
In terms of mana efficiency, I think I prefer the Frostbolt, unless he's going, okay, both of the Rays plus Giant. I can do that.
Yes. Yeah, this is the only way it works out, because he couldn't have gone Frostbolt plus Ray. Plus Giant. Oh.
Another Cult Neophyte?
That's huge.
I think it's fine taking Voracious Reader, draw 1 here.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think so. Sure. I mean, the only thing I'm considering is while you have a beast in play, do you ever get these kill commands down on this turn? Like, I guess you probably have to get the neophyte down. It's too important.
Fair to just remove the giant also, even though it feels awful. You play around conj, which if the conj sticks there, I think you do just lose the game.
That's fair, but at the same time, you get down a guaranteed pressure plate with this line, right? Which makes giant conj a lot worse.
Fair. Really close. Oh, loosen Bard!
Oh! No!
The nightmare! Wolpertinger most likely comes off of the Scavenger's Ingenuity. He knows there's another half of conj, so he has to get rid of the 6/6, I think.
I wonder.
Or does he? Do you just play Cult Neophyte and say if you want to spend 5 mana to get yourself 2 more 8-drops, then fine?
Very risky. I mean, you're obviously giving them the chance for quite a few taunts, a couple of life steals as well.
I don't think Shaxy has the damage over the top to warrant leaving up the 6/6 because he already expended a kill command to get rid of the first giant. I think this is in keeping. I like it.
10 damage that's been sunk into minions so far this game, and yet still he's homing in on lethal.
Yep. Trade Hunter is the new way to play this. Cult Neophytes have been such a headache for Alan.
Arcane Intellect plus Frostbolt? Just to
With the
buy you a
Apprentice?
turn? I mean, I'm saying hold Apprentice and hope to get Evocation for next turn.
That's fair. Because
I just think you need a miracle.
The Neophyte kind of cancels out the benefit of the Apprentice you would get anyway.
Like maybe
Is it
if
ever
next turn...
Shenvala Frostbolt?
That's interesting. That's definitely interesting because that does kind of save you mana for next turn to go Apprentice AI if it survives.
Is it cold in here? Or is it just me?
Yeah, I like the line from Alan. You've seen double kill command, but there's still this that's unaccounted for, the Dragon Bane.
Oh!
Double Eagle Horn bows as well in the deck.
So trade hero power is guaranteed 6 to the face on this turn. Oh, sorry, 9 to the face on this turn with everything factored in, right?
Who's trading? Not me.
Sure. Sign
Either
me
you
up.
kill Shenvala or you kill Alan.
To the library!
All right.
Someday I'll be just
The
like
absolute
you.
miracle of miracle turns has to come now.
And just take the Kobold and move along.
Yep. Carry on with the turn.
Is it Kobold Cram Session? I think you value one more card draw here.
I mean, it's the same thing, right? You just get a 2/2 and play with this line.
I mean, it could have been just Cram Session, and if you get
Oh,
exact
sure,
evocation,
sorry.
you have more mana to work with, but it's a small thing.
Okay. Cram session. You can get Evocation Frost Nova here. 4 Ray of
Got it.
Frosts. That's one.
Okay. I never in a million years would have thought of 4 Ray of Frost, but that was an out, technically.
Yeah, that's where you got to get to. I've lost plenty of tempo mage games, so I'm used to trying to find the outs in the direst of situations. And it did work out well for Shaxy. A weird game, as you said, Trade Hunter, kind of an apt name there for how he played it. But I think even having seen it, like, he sensed that there was no way to clear the board. If he just cleaned up the minion every turn, it really did shut out any of the outs from Conjurer's Calling.
I think that was very well played from Shaxy. It's difficult to identify when that needs to be the game plan, but as soon as he made the toughest decision of the first kill command, where does it go? And I think because he added up the damage in hand and the damage on board, and that if he hadn't top decked exactly Eaglehorn Bow in the next couple turns, that Alan could potentially race him with Conjurer's Calling. He went for the first kill command, and from there the game plan was pretty straightforward of removing all of the good conj targets from Alan's board, and he got there through incremental damage. Love to see it.
Yeah, cool way to approach it. Even with missing the 1-drops, it shows just how good of a matchup you have there against the Mage. They have to hit an absolute dream to have any real chance in the matchup, which means Hunter out of the way. Mage still the weak spot. Demon Hunter's got to win. Hunter's got to win. Warrior is going to be having a go now. And Alan, being a good sport, going for the Mage once again, trying to give Shaxy a chance to get the 3-0 sweep on the Mage, or finally get it out of the way and try and wrestle things back when he gets to play his own Priest afterwards. This is what it all comes down to. If Alan gets the win here, he's in a good spot.
Absolutely. I'm worried about Alan's internet, possibly, if there really was any latency to cause him to rope that last attack there. We could have seen a different game if the value trade from Solarian did end up hitting the Dwarven Sharpshooter, but he's on the Mage again, and the Priest, which is the Highlander version. These are both very decision-dense decks, where if Alan wants to optimize and race against the clock, it's a very, very tall order.
Well, he's got himself, you know, the kind of slow combo-y hand you can go for, like AI Apprentice. It's super slow, but it can draw him those kind of cards so he can go Sorcerer's Apprentice and a big Cyclone turn, a big turn with Evocation. But in the end, he says, I want none of this. He won't even keep Apprentice here.
I thought that was just for the Demon Hunter matchup, but even against Warrior,
He
like,
doesn't want to play Bloodfen Raptor on curve.
Well, neither do I, if you put it that way. But obviously, Apprentice is much better than that. Derek, I can't justify it anymore. It hurts. The other game, it was plausible. This game, it is just... It feels like a slap in the face. But, you know, for Alan's sake, I hope he makes it work.
Well, you know what
I'm
they
on
say
board
here.
with Tempo Shinvala.
2 wrongs make a right, and if you're wrong both times, I think it does just become correct here for Alan. Obviously, again, I'm teasing. Like, I do genuinely, even though I disagree with it, I'm not going to say it's wrong. It's just not the way that I would play it. It's not the way most people would play it. But it's still a treat to watch Alan play the Mage in a very different fashion.
That's fair. If we were viewing Chonsu's lineup, which is not strictly wrong, but definitely not what most people would do, as an entertaining thing that happened, and a plausible thing, then similar with Alan's Mage Mulligan philosophy.
Well,
Mostly
tempo...
I'm just salty that it invalidates my mullet over episode, but Shaxy has Coin Wrench Caliber if he wants to get the swings rolling. The Shinvala is pretty scary.
It is, which is definitely leading him towards considering tempo Berov on this turn. Which is not terrible, of course, but the problem is that the 5/5s that come out on the following turn, which you're definitely expecting, are still full health. And then after after Barov is cleared, you're then left with little way to deal with those 5/5s. So I do prefer deviating away from tempo Barov.
And I guess it is not all that likely that Alan gets to activate the Shinvala immediately, or at least not without doing something awkward like Ray of Frost's own minion. But with this Encounter's Flow pickup, that makes things pretty easy.
Really does.
Or do you just take the Evo because it's an Evo and Ray of Frost activate Shinvala?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I'm always picking Evocation here. I don't really care about Encounter's Flow that much. I just think it's so premium here. I'll Ray of Frost my own guy every day of the week.
Yep. I'm on board. Yikes. Barov is still extremely awkward here, but it's the only way to answer the Shinvala at the moment, unless he believes in this shield block giving him shield spam. There's also Quartermaster, which potentially gives you Kobold and Rush Lackey to get rid of the 2/5.
Yep.
This just feels terrible.
Yeah, this quote-unquote tempo Barov definitely feels a bit better because you actually get to kill the Shinvala this time, so it can't generate any more 5/5, so you're much more likely to actually get the clear on this turn, which is a big deal, of course.
Big draw for Alan.
Big draw that you're
Or
playing.
is it? It's very awkward with the Barrow of Death Rattle, actually.
Like, what, you can go 5-1 face, trade the Spell Wing, and then just play Raz?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but the board state it leaves you with is rather weak. The single minion, whether it's Blade Storm or just buffs on this weapon, Krastenov being the Nightmare. It
Playmorph?
disincentivizes it.
Am I crazy for wanting to go Poly on the Barov?
No. I think it's sick.
Oh.
Shaxy just demonstrated that he did not have a whirlwind effect to deal with that board. He had to sink in the wrench caliber damage.
Right.
Alan gets to push another 5. If Shaxy's best way of removing the 5 is face tanking it again, then he's in a great spot.
5-mana Polymorph was the nuts, but Shaxy off the top finds the whirlwind effect that he needed to sweep up and not have to tank another 5 damage.
It is huge. Question is, what does he do with the rest of the mana? He can immediately re-equip the wrench caliber with his Horde Pillager, but you don't get to weave in the hero power here. Oh, is he
He's
face
not
tanking
playing it! He's tanking it!
What?
Hello?
Job done.
I think this decision came off of the fact that he drew Plague of Wrath that he wants to pair it with, but I'm very, very shocked by that.
He's gonna tank 1,000,000! There's 2 Arcane Missiles in hand, at least!
Like, obviously he's scared of Mana Giant Conj at some point, which is why he's holding on to Whirlwind Plague of Wrath, but I feel like you're less likely to lose to that at that point than the immediate problem of Alan having burst damage.
I guess. Yeah, like, you don't have any hard removal at this point.
No, I mean, I like your line. I mean, I like the Whirlwind for sure. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
I
think
mean-
of where Shaxy's head is at.
Right, I mean, I was saying I kind of understand, because if Giant Conj does come down, or just straight up Giant, like, he doesn't have the ability to clear off unless he keeps Whirlwind. But, yeah, I'm still somewhat surprised, for sure.
Okay, this does make for a possible Raz turn, but a very bad Blade Storm setup for Alan if he wants to take it.
Yeah, it's close. I'm really torn between Raz and Cyclone on this turn. I guess you can still just take a reasonably powerful one next turn with Missiles and the Ray of Frost.
Man, I don't know about this. Because if the answer is Blade Storm right here, you might not even have a Ray of Frost target for Mana Cyclone follow-up. But Shaxy has not drawn the Blade Storm. Looking at his list again, it's actually just a one of in there, whereas he has double Coerce, so that might be a big reason why Alan is willing to take this risk.
Job done.
Well, this is the payoff, I suppose, of Shaxy's line. He does get the ability to clear off. He did know that the 6/6 was coming in the next couple of turns. Whoa. But you got to be scared, because this is a lot of damage still coming through.
This is a generated missiles. I'm trying to think if he can fit in every card on the right-hand side, but it's 1 mana short, right?
Yes.
I wonder.
So you could just go Cram Session Giant. Could just go Giant Ping. I don't hate that at all.
The fear is the Coerce, which Shaxy is running
What
2
to
copies
do,
of. So
what
is
to
it
do.
ever Cram Session Mana Cyclone Giant? Just to have 2 things on board?
Can't do that.
Oh, sorry, no
right?
mana.
Yeah, 1 mana
Yeah,
off.
that's not a generated Cram. Rather, Arcane Missiles
Runs
then.
out on me.
Mm. I definitely don't mind just starting with Cram Session and see what you get. Wow.
Yep. If you start Cram Session, then you can't play double minions this turn. So Alan is ending up on a small Cyclone just to make Blade Storm a little more difficult to accomplish. And even if there is Coerce, he has a minion on board. He's just smelling blood.
He is. And currently, the answer straight up is not there. This plays around the Coerce. It really plays around the Blade Storm as well, is a big thing.
Looking for Coerce, looking for
Oh.
Shield Slam, but there is one of the few answers that Shaxy had. left. Sword and board, full clear. Decent amount of health. Alan has to start from the drawing board now. Uh-oh.
Yeah, there's that Bloodfen Raptor you didn't want.
Well, we're cramming. We're looking for the natural evocation in the deck because that first one was generated. If you start with Sork and go cram session, the upside is you can immediately play evocation if it's the one off the top. I think it's unlikely that you get a big payoff immediately.
Yeah, I would rather just see what you get off the top. Maybe it's something else that's worth throwing down instead. I suppose Jandis would still have been playable with the Sorcerer's Apprentice line.
And if he just plays Lab Partner here, Shaxy's response is Grom
Oh,
for the value trade.
so close! So close!
Crazy. I mean, this is not even a card that most warriors are running. Shaxy's list has a bunch of one-ofs. Gonna deviate a bit to make sure he gets armor in there and equips Ranch Caliber. It's also a nice setup because he gets 2 good Witchy Lackey targets. I have to imagine you evolve the Pillager though.
Yeah, it's insane. This is so much tempo he's gaining. And while Alan has a way to stall this for a turn, of course, with Cone of Cold, and it was pretty lackluster anyway, actually lowering the damage, he needs something more. Maybe One Thief can give him what he needs. AI, Cram Session, Box, Power of Creation, Deep Freeze.
I like all those words you said, except I would have said box first.
That's a draw. That's something.
Mm-hmm. Oh no! A Cyclone?
Cyclone, Evocation. He's got time. He's got plenty of time with these Ray of Frost. If nothing else, they buy him turns.
I want to see Shaxy just go in with the Grom this turn. I think the reason, other than, you know, he had a different powerful play last turn that he didn't play it, is that if you go Grom trade, then you're not sinking in the 10 damage immediately, and then that lets it be a freeze target for several turns. We could just see him sink the 10 right now. With the Kobold Black. Alternatively, upgrade plus Grom.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, Evocation, Mana Cyclone, Magic Trick.
Okay, we're just playing that, I think.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
man.
no!
Vaporize is actually okay here. You just ping the 2-1.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
This is just where we're at now. Taking Vaporizes.
Is it definitely better than going like Netherwind, Ray of Frost?
It's
Probably.
definitely better.
Yeah.
Freezes are finite, but then the Vaporize also means that, you know, Shaxy can just hold off a turn. If he develops any other minion, then that could be the fodder for Vaporize. And also, he's just drawn the most powerful tempo play in the deck.
Yeah, that's the one. Ordering it this way because he doesn't even really care about Flame Ward, I think.
I don't think he's attacking at all to play around Vaporize.
Okay, fair.
Ay. Steward of Scrolls into Frost Nova.
Okay.
A charming composition.
Nope.
Polly?
GG.
Well, he's not dead, right? He can go Polly freeze. Technically alive?
Okay, true.
He's still got that turn. He still has the miracle turn. Like, Evocation could just be lethal, straight up, if he gets like 5
Maybe.
Frostbolts.
Maybe.
Unlikely.
It is feeling less and less likely. Turns go on. Shaxy's also just able to fit in another shield block. Back up to 23 after the hero power.
A lot of health. There's a lot of health.
It has to be evocation into like Font of Power Mana Giant plus freeze. That's the out I'm seeing.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, is he just dying?
Someday I'll be just like you.
Oh no, the other apprentice!
We shall end this disturbance.
Taunt. Freeze.
He never gets there. There's just too many boom bots.
It's a load and nothing. Alan's just going to throw this one down. You have to imagine, or I guess maybe pray that there's some kind of a miracle outcome, which I'm pretty sure is impossible for him to actually survive at all. Of course, Shaxy finds the way, wins 3-1, and again, Gia, Division B is squishing closer and closer together. 2-2 for Alan, 2-1 for Shaxy. No one pulling in as a clear favorite, which also means everyone is the potentially relegated player right now. Everyone's sus.
Scary stuff over in Division B. That one really hurts for Alan. He started off so strong with a 2-0 start, but this entire weekend has been losses for him. Particularly that game 2 was, painful to watch because he did rope out at the end there. Whether that was his fault or an internet issue, I don't know. But both of those feel terrible to lose a game towards. Don't want to take away from Shaxy though, because I think the play has been very solid. I have questions about the build of the warrior, but when we've gotten in-game, I've liked the lines that we've seen, especially on the Hunter.
For sure. And I think what for me is that over the course of the weekend, we've got a really good idea, I think, of how to target well and how maybe to not target so well. Because obviously Chonsu is the prime example of going with the